The MC, Nakayama Kutaru, often wonders who would be considered the central figure if the world were a fairy tale. He knows with certainty that it would not be him. That is what he believes, at least until a certain day. A few days earlier, Azusa suggests going to buy a new swimsuit after school. Even though it is only May, it feels a little early in the season, but she insists because she wants Ryuzaki Ryuma to notice her in it as soon as possible. She also explains that her old one no longer fits since she has grown since last year. Another girl agrees with her plan, showing the same eagerness. In moments like this, it becomes clear to Nakayama that if the world were written as a fairy tale, the role of protagonist would unquestionably belong to Ryuzaki Ryuma. Girls around him compete for his attention, and he stands at the center of their admiration, naturally drawing them in. Ryuzaki's daily life unfolds like a romantic comedy, while Nakayama's own existence feels completely different. Before entering high school, he never imagined things would turn out this way. Ever since Azusa, Yuzuki, and the others met Ryuzaki at the start of their first year, the distance between them and Nakayama has steadily grown. Azusa, who once looked to him as a dependable older figure, now places Ryuzaki in that role, even calling him her brother in admiration. Yuzuki, who had been close to Nakayama since childhood, avoids him after falling instantly for Ryuzaki. Although Nakayama and Azusa are not connected by blood, he had believed he was fulfilling the role of a proper older brother. Yet it seems that the place she was searching for in her life may actually belong to Ryuzaki. Nakayama reflects on the moments he once shared with the girls. He sees how they changed themselves to gain Ryuzaki's attention, altering their personalities in ways he never wanted to witness. He tells himself he has no hidden desire to date them, but he cannot help wondering if circumstances had been different. Perhaps with other choices in the past, he might have been the one sitting in Ryuzaki's position today. The thought crosses his mind, but he dismisses it as nothing more than a foolish illusion. He knows he is not Ryuzaki and never could be the central figure in such a story. A more fitting label describes him better: a background presence. In the romantic comedy that revolves around Ryuzaki Ryuma, Nakayama Kutaru recognizes himself only as a supporting character, someone without importance, without influence, and without a role that truly matters. Ryuma lives a life that resembles a colorful school romantic comedy surrounded by several heroines. What unfolds before Nakayama feels like a perfect school harem story, and Ryuzaki's circle extends beyond the three girls who first drew close to him. Among them is Shimotsuki, Ryuzaki's childhood companion. At a glance, her presence appears distant, almost cold, as if she is always in a stern mood. Her expressions remain nearly unchanged. Her words are brief, and her tone rarely shifts. Yet despite this, no one dislikes her. She holds a kind of brilliance that makes her seem as though she has stepped out of a storybook, her presence radiant enough to leave others momentarily stunned. Shimotsuki seems to stand on a level far removed from those around her. Nakayama notices how Ryuzaki treats her differently, as though his feelings toward her are unlike the rest. It is clear that among the many figures in this unfolding tale, she fits the role of the main heroine, the one who naturally draws the focus of the protagonist's affection. He notices Shimotsuki gazing at him, but dismisses it as his imagination. Back home, he lies on his bed, lost in thought. He imagines the girls spending their time shopping with Ryuzaki, likely enjoying themselves while trying on swimsuits. He realizes he has never spoken properly with Shimotsuki, making it difficult to picture her in such a situation. Brushing the thought aside, he decides there is no point in dwelling on it and turns his attention to his homework, only to realize he has forgotten it. After much hesitation, he makes his way to the classroom, where Shimotsuki is seated alone. Just before entering, he struggles to find the right words, uncertain how to approach her. He wonders why she is not with Ryuzaki and the others as he had assumed. Standing near her, he notices she appears to be asleep, her resting expression surprisingly gentle. The sight unsettles him, and he turns away, thinking it is improper to keep watching her. As the hours pass and the clock nears evening, Nakayama worries about her walking home alone at such a late hour. He debates whether he should wake her, concerned about startling her if he speaks suddenly. Eventually, he leans forward to brush back a strand of her hair, only to realize he has touched her unintentionally. Her eyes open, meeting his in surprise. He quickly withdraws his hand, flustered. Words tumble out in an attempt to explain himself. Overwhelmed by embarrassment, he tries to leave in a hurry. Just as he does, she calls out to stop him. She gets up from her chair, but loses her balance and falls to the floor. Nakayama turns toward her in concern and asks if she is all right. He moves closer, sits near her, and catches her as she tries to steady herself. In his thoughts, he reflects that if the world were imagined as a fairy tale, the main character of such a story would not be him. Shimotsuki looks at him with a calm expression, then gently takes his hand as if testing something. When he asks what she's doing, she admits that she usually feels nervous speaking in front of others, which is why she finds it hard to laugh or have casual conversations. But with him, it's different. Up until that day, Nakayama had always believed he was just a background character in Ryuzaki Ryuma's romantic comedy, a passive observer with no real role of his own. But then, Shimotsuki looks him in the eye and asks him a simple question: "Would you be my friend?" Our lad wakes up the next day recalling Shimotsuki's words. As he sits up, he thinks to himself that the day might turn out well. He gets dressed, prepares for school, and heads out. When he steps into his classroom, Hanakishi, his classmate and friend, greets him cheerfully. Nakayama responds with the same energy, returning the greeting as he takes his seat. Not long after, Ryuzaki enters the room. The moment he appears, a crowd of girls quickly gathers around him, filling the class with excitement. Watching this, Hanakishi notices how effortlessly Ryuzaki has already become surrounded. Nakayama shares the same thought in his mind. Both of them cannot help but wonder how he manages to be so admired. Nakayama observes Ryuzaki more carefully. He is undeniably good-looking, fit, and clearly maintains himself through exercise. Yet Nakayama believes those qualities alone are not enough to explain why he draws so much attention. To Nakayama, Ryuzaki seems more like the central figure in a romantic comedy, the kind of person who naturally takes the lead role in such stories. As the classroom continues to buzz, Shio enters. Nakayama's eyes turn toward her at once, surprised to see her so focused and composed today. In his thoughts, he admits that for ordinary boys like himself and Hanakishi, she carries an air that is almost intimidating. Even though he has become friends with her, he still finds her overwhelming. She is far too charming, and just being close to her makes him feel tense. Even so, Nakayama realizes something within himself. He does not feel thrilled about it in the way he once imagined. When he considers it carefully, he concludes that Shimotsuki and he live in completely different worlds. If she were to talk with him in front of others, it would draw unwanted attention to him. With that in mind, he decides he must remain cautious in how he interacts with her. When class ends and lunch break begins, Nakayama walks over to Shimotsuki. Looking at her, he wonders whether she is angry. She asks him if they are friends, and when he agrees, she questions why he does not talk to her. She insists that since they are friends, he should speak with her. Nakayama thinks that because she is shy, he avoided speaking to her in public. She realizes that was his reason, but tells him she would be more troubled if he stayed silent than if he spoke to her openly. She says she would prefer if he could talk with her, and adds that she is glad because she had assumed he did not want to be friends. Nakayama apologizes for not speaking and hopes they will get along better from now on. He thinks there is no way he could dislike her and considers that they are good friends now. He wonders whether using each other's first names might feel impolite, but also thinks that doing so would bring them closer. Shimotsuki holds on to his jacket and urges him to call her by her given name, saying it would make them look like close friends. Nakayama speaks her first name, and she reacts with surprise. She turns her face away, thinking it might still be too soon, and feels her cheeks grow warm. She decides she will call him by his first name once she has settled herself. Nakayama then says he is hungry and suggests going behind the school building. Shio is surprised that he wants her to come along too. Once they are there, Nakayama begins eating his lunch, but she points out that melon bread is not a proper meal, only a sweet. She asks if he always eats bread for lunch, and he admits that he usually does. She tells him it is not healthy because balance is important. She then takes out the lunchbox her mother prepared and says she will let him try some. Picking up a piece with her hand, she offers it to him. He eats it but insists he is fine. She encourages him again, saying it would be impolite to hold back with a friend. Nakayama wonders if this is not too much, even if they are close, or whether this is simply normal for her. When he does not open his mouth, she presses him to hurry. Finally, she places a bite into his mouth and asks if he enjoyed it. He responds that he did, although he is so nervous that he cannot even sense the taste properly. Hearing this, she feels flustered, saying she will get embarrassed if he makes her conscious of such things. Shio feels pleased because she had wanted to do something like this and is now happy. Nakayama thinks that if she is happy, she should take it easy on him, but she makes it clear that it will not happen. She explains that there are many things she wants to do with her friends and expects Nakayama to help her with them. Nakayama watches her and compares her to a small animal, feeling himself smiling again. He notices that he feels happy when he is with Shio. He considers himself just an unimportant background student, yet she is making him feel content. He thinks that every day has been dull since he entered high school, but now, because of Shio, he believes it will change. Shio then makes a playful remark about Nakayama's heart beating fast when she fed him earlier. He denies it. She reminds him that she can hear his heartbeat and asks if he has forgotten. Nakayama realizes he had indeed forgotten that. He remembers that Shimotsuki had told him a story the day before. She revealed that she was born with unusually sharp hearing and can notice sounds that ordinary people cannot. She explained that each person produces a different kind of sound. Gentle people give off clear tones, while frightening people produce unpleasant noises, similar to scratching on a chalkboard. In short, she can hear things that normal people cannot. Shio was born with a heightened sense of hearing, and from those sounds, she is able to judge a person's character and emotions. Nakayama thinks about her explanation and realizes that it resembles a condition where some people associate sounds with colors. He recalls how certain tones can be linked to colors such as red or green and considers that in Shio's case, she may be able to perceive the feelings of others through the sounds they produce. He reflects on her words and considers it convenient, but Shiko made it clear that it is not always so. She explained that not every sound is good. Hearing the emotions of others is not always pleasant. Nakayama understands what she means, realizing that she can also hear darker emotions such as desire and envy. For someone like Shio, who is special, it must be even more difficult. He concludes that it surely must be hard for her to live with such a burden. Shigo tells Nakayama that their meeting feels like destiny. She explains that her senses are so sharp that even while asleep, she can notice the smallest disturbance, yet she had not awakened until he touched her. For her, it was the first time in her life such a thing had happened, and she considers that if this is not fate, then nothing is. She quickly corrects herself, saying that fate may be too strong a word, because Nakayama's sound does not make her uneasy. She describes his sound as gentle, like birds singing or a calm river flowing, and admits that she likes it very much. She points out that he must be nervous in that moment, since his uneasiness is clear when they are talking and walking together, which she finds endearing. Nakayama feels embarrassed and thinks of fate again, but he also recalls how Ryuzaki spends more time with her than he does. Shio responds by saying that Ryuzaki's sound is unpleasant, and then she falls silent. Nakayama calls to her, asking what is wrong and why she brought him there so suddenly. Shio apologizes and says there is something she must tell him. She explains that no one usually comes to that place and confesses that she must hide and run away from someone. Nakayama becomes confused, uncertain of what she means. At that moment, Ryuzaki passes by with a girl. He notices Shio and asks what she is doing there. Then he turns to Nakayama and demands to know who he is and what he is doing with Shio. Ryuzaki confronts Nakayama with suspicion, questioning why he's alone with Shio in such a deserted spot. His anger grows as he accuses Nakayama of doing something inappropriate to his childhood friend. Nakayama, startled by the sudden intrusion, wonders why both of them are even here. He realizes that Azusa likely intended to confess her feelings to Ryuma, the person she had been searching for as her real brother. However, Ryuzaki's attention is entirely fixed on Shimotsuki, completely misunderstanding the situation. Nakayama knows Azusa had gathered all her courage for this moment, yet he feels conflicted. She's his stepsister, someone he deeply cares for, but cannot truly see as family. Even so, he chooses not to interfere with her emotions. When Ryuzaki steps closer, Nakayama firmly insists that he's done nothing wrong. As Nakayama tells Shimotsuki to leave, she instead hides behind him, clutching his arm tightly. He looks at her in surprise as she trembles, unable to respond. Her fear is so visible that Nakayama realizes just how uncomfortable she must feel. Noticing her pale face, Ryuzaki moves forward again, his concern now mixed with irritation. Nakayama steps protectively in front of Shio and decides to take her to the infirmary. He demands that Ryuzaki let them pass. Ryuzaki reacts sharply, mocking Nakayama's attempt to act like a hero and blaming him for making Shio unwell. Nakayama calmly repeats that he has done nothing wrong and tells Ryuzaki to move aside. Shio, her voice quiet and uncertain, tells Nakayama she'll go alone. As she begins to walk away, he reaches out to stop her. Ryuzaki then turns to Azusa and asks her to accompany Shio to the infirmary. Azusa, caught off guard by the request, looks uncertain about how to respond. Nakayama intervenes, telling Ryuzaki to wait. He points out that Azusa seems to have something to say to him. Nakayama offers to take Shimotsuki instead so they can talk privately. However, Ryuzaki refuses, saying he wants to speak with Nakayama. He turns back to Azusa and insists she handle the matter. Azusa, slightly disappointed, agrees and leaves, muttering that Ryuzaki only hears what he wants to. Ryuzaki calls after her, but Nakayama's thoughts are elsewhere. He feels concern for Azusa, but decides protecting Shimotsuki is more important. Turning back to Ryuzaki, he calmly explains that there's no reason for concern, nothing inappropriate happened. He questions why Ryuzaki is getting involved when he isn't even in a relationship with Shimotsuki. Ryuzaki replies that as her childhood friend, it's his responsibility to protect her. He claims Shimotsuki is unwell and misunderstood, believing only he can truly help her. Nakayama hears this and silently rejects the idea. Shido isn't weak or broken. Her quiet nature only makes her seem distant, but behind it is a warmth and an easy smile that emerges when she feels safe. She's just a shy girl, not someone who needs rescuing. To Nakayama, Ryuzaki's self-importance feels overbearing. He acts as if the world must bend around him, mistaking possessiveness for care. It feels selfish, his concern rooted more in control than understanding. Nakayama imagines the accusation that might come next, a demand for an explanation, a vow never to forgive anyone who hurts his childhood friend. The imagined weight of it lingers, but no clear response comes to mind. Realizing this, Nakayama chooses a different path. If he makes himself seem unimportant, Ryuzaki's attention might shift elsewhere. The tension could ease. He frames it as a role, just a background character causing a momentary disruption before fading from the spotlight. In his mind, he embraces this identity, someone who stirs the plot only to let the true protagonists continue their story. He decides to endure being underestimated, to avoid a deeper conflict, and let the drama play out without him. At last, Nakayama speaks. He tells Ryuzaki that nothing serious happened. He only tried to confess because he found Shimotsuki attractive, but her guard was too strong, and nothing came of it. Ryuzaki, surprised, asks if Nakayama likes her. He responds that while she is charming, her reaction made it clear he stood no chance. Ryuzaki laughs, admitting he thought something more was going on after overhearing them. He calls Nakayama just another challenger. Hearing this, Nakayama realizes what Ryuzaki truly fears, losing Shimotsuki to someone else. In his thoughts, Nakayama again likens himself to a background character, a small disruption in the heroine's story. He adds that he only wanted to be friends with Shimotsuki, but may have overstepped. She said she wasn't feeling well and left. Ryuzaki replies that he understands and reassures himself that Shimotsuki won't ignore him for someone else. He warns Nakayama to stop before he gets hurt, insisting one-sided feelings aren't wrong, but they can be painful. Our lad agrees, but thinks inwardly that it probably won't work. Even so, he tells himself to try. In his thoughts, he insists again, background characters don't need emotions. Ryuzaki remarks that such things are just part of youth. Nakayama quietly notes how convenient it is that Ryuzaki can reframe everything in a positive light. Then Ryuzaki adds that he doesn't dislike people like Nakayama. He extends a hand and asks for his name, suggesting they become friends. Nakayama thinks that if it ends here, Ryuzaki will finally stop focusing on Shimotsuki. Just then, a voice calls to him, asking if it's okay to speak. Ryuzaki repeats his question, again asking if they can be friends. Nakayama, slightly irritated, realizes Ryuzaki doesn't even remember his name. He takes his hand and reintroduces himself as Nakayama Kutaru, reminding him that they're classmates. Ryuzaki mishears it, calling him Nakagawa instead, and leaves, claiming he'll remember it now. Once he's gone, Nakayama reflects on the encounter. He knows he lowered himself to satisfy Ryuzaki and feels humiliated by the exchange. Despite the mockery, he convinces himself it was necessary. If acting this way keeps Shimotsuki safe, then it's worth it. He repeats in his mind, background characters don't need feelings. The smile left on his face feels distorted, almost painful, but he accepts it. It's a habit now, something so deeply ingrained that he can't escape it, no matter how much it hurts. The next day, Ryuzaki asks Nakagawa if he hasn't invited Shio for lunch. Our lad thinks to himself that, after what happened yesterday, Ryuzaki has started speaking to him. He replies that he wanted to, but if he did, Shigo might think he's being too insistent. Ryuzaki accepts his response and moves on. In his thoughts, Nakayama reflects that Shio had tried to talk to him several times, yet he avoided her, worried that doing so might deepen Ryuzaki's suspicions. After school, Ryuzaki bids farewell to Nakagawa and walks away. He exhales slowly, relieved that the day has come to an end. He believes Ryuzaki will be less cautious tomorrow, and that there's no longer any need to stay on guard. Still, the uneasiness inside him lingers. Since childhood, he has always felt like he existed in the background, uncertain of his place or purpose. He never saw himself as the central figure in his own life. Quiet and unnoticed, he lived on the edge of every moment, like a faint presence in someone else's world. By the time he entered high school, this reality became even clearer. His life felt lonely and dull. Even the girls who were once friendly had begun to drift away. He wonders why everything turned out so meaningless, until the answer finally becomes clear. Later that day, as he looks at his reflection in the mirror, he realizes his entire existence feels like that of a minor character in Ryuzaki's romantic story, a world centered around one man, surrounded by many girls. He sees himself as someone whose role is simply to push the protagonist forward. In that imagined story, Ryuzaki is the central figure, tempted by many, yet devoted to his childhood friend. He recalls how the three girls met Ryuzaki at the school entrance ceremony, how their personalities seemed to shift entirely, as if influenced by some unseen force. If all of this really is Ryuzaki's story, then Nakayama believes the others' affections will never reach fulfillment. The one destined to be chosen is the fragile heroine, the quiet, misunderstood girl who embodies the tragic ideal. In his mind, the pattern of this story already feels written. Only the protagonist is granted happiness, while the heroine and the side characters are left behind in sorrow. He struggles to accept that such a structure could even be considered a real story at all. On his way home, Nakayama steps onto the bus, his thoughts still consumed by everything around him. He believes that the story's central figure has the advantage of opportunity. To stop that from taking effect, he feels he must keep the story from progressing and prevent events from unfolding as intended. Yet he knows someone like him, who plays no major role, can only delay the inevitable. Even so, he decides that if he is to protect Shimotsuki, he must make Azusa, Kareri, and Yuki compete with one another. He concludes it would be unwise to speak with Shimotsuki in the classroom, even though she had asked him to, because doing so might invite Ryuzaki's suspicion again. As the bus continues its route, Shio happens to be riding as well. When the conductor approaches to collect her fare, she searches for her wallet, but realizes she doesn't have it. Troubled, she hesitates, unsure what to do. Nakayama, overhearing her faint voice, turns his attention toward her. She calls out to him, asking for help. Without hesitation, he pays her fare, settling the matter quietly before either of them says anything more. Shio, both pleased and surprised, admits it's her first time riding the bus. Though she knew she'd need fare, she left her wallet behind in her rush to follow Nakayama after seeing him leave the classroom. She expresses her gratitude and tells him that he seems like a hero to her. He responds modestly, saying he doesn't see himself that way, just as an ordinary background figure. Shio disagrees. She tells him that he helps others when they need it, even if he doesn't see it himself. She adds that doing such things is something to be proud of and that he should allow himself some credit. When they step off the bus, the wind tussles Nakayama's hair. Shio notices and offers to fix it for him. As she does, she tells him he has many good qualities he may not even realize. She promises to find those qualities and remind him of them whenever she can. She tells him not to call himself unimportant or speak poorly of himself. Listening to her words, Nakayama feels a familiar sense of inadequacy rise within him. He has always believed that Shido exists on a higher level, too bright and graceful for someone like him to compare. But when she takes his hand and tells him he's a good person who shouldn't belittle himself, he feels a quiet warmth growing inside. Though he still sees himself as a minor presence, Shigo's kind words give him a new sense of worth. For the first time, he feels that his existence might hold a little more meaning than before. Shido then expresses her wish to visit a friend's home. The scene transitions to Shido as she enters Nakayama's house. As she looks around the living room, her eyes sparkle at how beautiful the space is. Nakayama tells her that no one else is at home and that she should feel free to relax. He heads toward the kitchen and asks what she would like to drink. When he offers her a choice between tea and juice, she chooses juice, mentioning that she likes fast food and cold drinks. He nods and begins preparing it for her. While waiting, Shio glances around again, still curious about his home. She turns toward him and inquires when his parents will be returning. Nakayama looks a little surprised by the question and asks why she wants to know. Shio explains that she simply wants to meet them since she plans to be his friend for a long time. Nakayama looks amused and teases her gently, asking if she can really introduce herself properly when she's such a shy person. Her expression changes immediately, and she insists that she can. Realizing that she has taken his words seriously, he apologizes and hands her the juice with a small smile. He tells her that his parents are currently overseas on a business trip, so there's no need for her to worry about meeting them. Hearing that, Shio seems slightly disappointed and asks if he usually stays home alone. She admits that she would feel lonely if she were in his place. Then she tells him that he can rely on her whenever he feels alone, saying she's good at taking care of others and can act like an older sister if needed. She takes another sip of her drink and cheerfully asks for a refill. Watching her behavior, Nakayama begins to think that she feels more like a younger sister than an older one. Still, he appreciates her kindness and thinks that, since he spends most of his time alone, there's no harm in accepting her offer. To avoid saying anything that might start another small argument, he simply nods. As she continues talking, he finds her lively presence oddly nostalgic. Despite her noisy energy, it feels somewhat comforting to have her there. A few minutes later, Shio suddenly calls out that there's a problem. Nakayama turns to her, wondering what she means. She tells him that there are no sweets left for him, but then adds that the last piece of chocolate is still there and insists that he should have it. After handing it to him, she announces that their snack time is over and that it's time to do something else. She asks where his room is, and when he tells her it's on the second floor, she nods in understanding and starts heading upstairs. When Shio enters Nakayama's room, she immediately notices how many books are neatly arranged along the shelves. She walks closer and looks at them with interest, clearly impressed by the collection. Nakayama apologizes again, saying the room might be a bit messy. She asks if he enjoys reading, and he tells her it's something he often does in his free time. She smiles and remarks that he seems to be the type who spends his time with books, while she herself doesn't read novels or manga, preferring anime and games instead. She talks about how her dream is to play games together with her friends one day. After a short pause, she looks around the room once more and notices there are no gaming consoles or anything similar. She asks if he ever plays, and Nakayama replies that he doesn't. He apologizes once again for having such a plain room, saying it must be boring. Shio frowns slightly and asks why he keeps apologizing. He explains that he feels bad for disappointing her. She turns back to the bookshelf, running her eyes along the titles, and tells him that she doesn't think his room is dull at all. She says she wants to know more about him, what kind of person he is, what he enjoys, and how he thinks. She tells him that the room itself doesn't matter, and if he feels it's too plain, they can make it more fun together by adding games and other things she likes. Nakayama listens to her and agrees, saying he'll look forward to it. Then, remembering their upcoming schedule, he points out that midterm exams are approaching and asks if it's fine to focus on games right now. He adds that even if she avoids him, she can't escape the exams. Shio reacts immediately, complaining that a student's duty should be to enjoy life instead of doing something as boring as studying. Then she adds that if Nakayama were the one teaching her, she might be able to focus better. Nakayama looks surprised and repeats her words slowly, unsure if she's serious. In his thoughts, he finds it amusing and a little strange that someone as ordinary as him might end up tutoring the main heroine. Still, he agrees to help her study, thinking it's not a big deal. Shio's face brightens at his response. She tells him that if they study together, they'll get to spend more time with each other, even at school. Nakayama begins to reply, but his mind suddenly shifts elsewhere. He remembers something about Ryuzaki and realizes that he needs to tell her about it soon. Just then, a faint sound interrupts his thoughts. Shio freezes for a moment, hearing the sound of footsteps outside the room. She looks at Nakayama and asks about it, reminding him that he lives alone. If no one else should be here, then who could it be? Nakayama listens quietly for a second, confused, before a voice suddenly echoes from the entrance, announcing someone's return. Nakayama immediately realizes who it is and mutters that she has come back. Shio's eyes widen at his words. She stares at him in disbelief, and before he can explain, she accuses him of hiding the truth from her, saying he must have a girlfriend. Her tone shifts from confusion to frustration as she calls him unfaithful. He looks startled, not sure how to respond as the situation takes an unexpected turn. Shido, upset and confused, confronts Nakayama, believing he has been dishonest with her. She accuses him of hiding the fact that he already has someone else in his life. Nakayama looks at her in surprise, unable to understand what she means at first. The thought of having a girlfriend seems completely unfamiliar to him. Shido continues to question him, pointing out that he lives alone. Nakayama begins to piece things together in his mind. He realizes that Shimotsuki might have misunderstood something. She must have heard footsteps in his house and assumed it was another girl's presence, not knowing that Azusa also lives there. With her sharp sense of hearing, it's easy for her to recognize the sound of footsteps, and she likely mistook Azusa's for someone else's. Wanting to clear up the misunderstanding, Nakayama calmly decides to explain. He opens the door and calls for Azusa, intending to introduce her properly. Slightly confused, Azusa steps forward and asks if they can talk privately. Nakayama apologizes, explaining that he has a friend over and wants her to meet her. Curious, Azusa approaches and peeks inside, greeting Shio politely and thanking her for looking after her brother. Both girls fall silent, startled as they recognize each other. The tension between them begins to unravel in that quiet moment. Azusa is surprised to see that Nakayama's guest is Shimotsuki, her classmate. At the same time, Shido is equally shocked to realize the girl before her is Azusa Nakayama. Before Nakayama can explain, Shigo awkwardly assumes she now understands. He must have found someone special while she was away. The thought leaves him speechless as he tries to correct her. Flustered, Shio jumps to yet another conclusion. If Azusa lives with him, she must be his girlfriend. Nakayama patiently clarifies. Azusa is his stepsister, not his partner. Shido's confusion only deepens as she tries to make sense of the situation. Azusa, puzzled by their exchange, turns to her brother and asks what is going on. Nakayama explains to her that Shio seems to have misunderstood their relationship. Azusa immediately denies the idea, clarifying that there is nothing romantic between them. She simply tells Shio that she and Nakayama are family, nothing more. Hearing the truth, Shio hesitates for a moment. She admits to herself that the two of them do seem rather formal around each other, realizing that her assumption might have been wrong. The realization leaves her embarrassed and overwhelmed. She turns away, lies face down on the bed, and begins to cry, overcome with regret for misunderstanding everything. Nakayama calls her name, concerned, but she can only apologize through her tears for having behaved rudely. When he offers to accompany her outside, she quickly refuses, asking him to leave her alone for a while. Nakayama pauses, noticing the pillow nearby, but decides to let her be for the moment. As the room grows quiet, Shigo, still emotional, softly calls out Azusa's name, seeking her attention. After leaving the room, Nakayama waits for a while before Azusa steps out. He asks if Shio is all right, and Azusa replies that she said her mother would come to pick her up. Nakayama nods, realizing he had not known that the two of them interacted outside school. He remembers seeing them together during a lunch break once, a moment that had surprised him then as well. Azusa explains briefly, and Nakayama mentions that things between him and Shio have been more comfortable recently, though not entirely smooth. Even after 2 months, conversations between the siblings remain awkward. Nakayama brings up Shimotsuki again, wondering if Azusa has been staying in her room because of concern over her. He begins to think about the situation involving the others. He realizes that he has overlooked something important. Azusa has feelings for Ryuzaki, while Ryuzaki's heart belongs to Shimotsuki. No matter how much Azusa or the others try to get his attention, Ryuzaki does not seem to see them that way. Nakayama understands how Azusa might view things. Learning that Shimotsuki interacts with another boy might have seemed like an opportunity to her, but he knows that Ryuzaki would not give up easily. In fact, such a situation might only make him more determined to pursue her. Nakayama worries that if this happens, Azusa, blinded by her affection for Ryuzaki, might not listen to reason. After thinking deeply, Nakayama apologizes to Azusa and asks her to keep this to herself. He cannot explain everything, but he begs her not to tell Ryuzaki. Azusa looks at him in confusion, unsure why he seems so desperate, but agrees to do as he asks. She assures him that it does not really change anything for her either way. Nakayama reflects quietly, realizing that Azusa is sincerely trying to win Ryuzaki's affection. He senses the determination in her words and recognizes how devoted she truly is. Watching her smile, he feels he may have underestimated her feelings. She faces her emotions directly and remains true to herself, something he admires. He admits to himself that he has failed as an older brother, having misunderstood her for so long. When he apologizes aloud, Azusa tells him that he is difficult to understand and that she will return to her room. Before leaving, she encourages him to do his best as well. He thanks her, silently wishing her strength and success in her efforts. In his mind, he quietly reflects that even if he has failed as an older brother, he will always wish for Azusa's happiness. As Azusa walks away, she thinks to herself that her brother had not been angry with her. She considers how kind he has been, realizing that he truly is the ideal brother. Even after everything she said, he still treats her gently, and the thought brings tears to her eyes. Speaking softly to herself, she remembers her past. Before her father remarried Kutoru's mother, Azusa once had a biological older brother. Her father had been busy with work and had entrusted her care to that brother, who always stayed by her side and treated her with kindness. One day, however, he disappeared from her life without warning. Azusa had waited for him to return, day after day, believing he would come back, but he never did. In her young mind, she began to think that he had left because she had been a bad girl. When she said this, her father could not respond. From that moment, time seemed to stop for her. She believed that if she became a good girl, her brother might return. She kept her hairstyle the same as before so he would recognize her if they met again. Her body grew slowly, as if her heart refused to move forward. Though she continued to grow, she tried to hold on to the same feelings she had on that day. Her father, worried about her, hoped that remarriage might help her change. He thought that a new family might give her a new beginning. Azusa tried to accept her new life and called her classmate Kutoru her brother, but something about it never felt right. Kutoru could not fill the emptiness her real brother had left behind. Later, when she met Ryuzaki Ryuma, who resembled her lost brother, she began to see him as the kind of brother she had always wanted. But over time her feelings changed and she fell deeply in love with him, drawn to him completely. Her world narrowed until she could see nothing else. Kutoru slowly faded from her view. Now, thinking back, Azusa wonders what would happen if she told Ryuzaki the truth, but she remembers Nakayama's request and decides not to. She tells herself she will bring Shimotsuki to him instead so they can talk, and she reflects on how her brother tried to help her, even though she sees herself as a bad girl. She recalls his gentle encouragement and how he told her to do her best. Sitting down quietly, she promises herself that she will not say anything to Ryuzaki. Lying on her bed, she hugs her stuffed bear tightly and whispers an apology to her brother before falling asleep. One day, Shigo invites Nakayama to play baseball with her. She appears cheerful and ready to start. Nakayama remembers that the day before, she had been playing a baseball video game, aiming for the championship, and the excitement from it still lingers. As they get ready, he looks at her curiously, wondering if she truly plans to go through with it. With confidence, she takes the ball and prepares to throw. Nakayama, startled by her sudden energy, tries to stop her, but before he can, she throws the ball with full force. It curves sharply through the air and lands just as she expected. Shigo seems satisfied with the result, while Nakayama quietly thinks that it is a bit unfortunate because she looked like she was enjoying herself so much. He worries that if it continues this way, she might start feeling disappointed. Shigo admits she might have curved it too much and lightly apologizes, making a playful remark about her own ability. Then it is Nakayama's turn to pitch. He holds the ball and throws it toward her, but his aim goes off, and it hits Shigo on the head. He rushes over to her in concern, asking if she is okay. She assures him calmly that she is fine, and that it is nothing serious. A moment later, she raises her voice with enthusiasm, saying that playing baseball once in a while is not bad. Nakayama looks at her with relief and quietly agrees. Nakayama and Shimotsuki spend the afternoon studying together at home. While he focuses on his notes, Shimotsuki grows increasingly restless. Frustrated, she sighs and checks her phone, claiming she needs to study, only for Nakayama to notice she's browsing a site about raising strong horses instead of reviewing schoolwork. He reminds her to focus on academics, but she dismisses it, insisting studying is pointless and that spending time with her horse feels far more meaningful. Sensing her frustration, he changes the subject and mentions there's cake. Her mood lifts instantly. She chats excitedly about her favorite types and suggests a short break once they finish. Quickly adding that it's just for refreshment, she insists she isn't easily swayed by sweets. Nakayama smiles and assures her he understands. Growing shy, she asks if he thinks she seems careless or if he might dislike her for it. He knows he never could. Her disorganized side is part of her charm. When he asks if there's any part of the lesson she doesn't understand, she admits she struggles with nearly everything. They decide to start again from the beginning. As they continue, Shimotsuki quietly says it feels lonely not being able to talk freely at school. Nakayama agrees, though he admits he's hesitant due to Ryuzaki's constant interference. He apologizes, not wanting anyone to intrude on their time. Shimotsuki understands and says she'll endure it, knowing he's only doing it for her. Later, after tasting the cake, she brightens instantly, calling it delicious. Nakayama watches her with a quiet smile, relieved to see her happy again. A few days ago, he opened up to Shimotsuki about the situation with Ryuzaki. Ever since their unexpected meeting behind the gym, Ryuzaki has been constantly getting in his way. The interference not only troubles him, but also causes unease for Shimotsuki, making her anxious whenever Ryuzaki is around. When she learns about it, she understands his reason for avoiding attention at school. She admits that she also wishes they could talk freely there, but decides to endure the situation for now. Nakayama reflects on the problem that had seemed impossible to solve. Shimotsuki looks at him and asks him to give her more attention after school, saying she feels lonelier than she appears. He agrees without hesitation. She tells him that being with him brings her a sense of peace, and because of that, she tends to act a little spoiled around him. She asks him not to find it troublesome. In his mind, Nakayama realizes how easily his worries fade whenever she is near. Her presence alone has the power to calm him. Shimotsuki, born with a kind of charm that stands out from everyone else, smiles softly and tells him that he is the one who is truly special. A while ago, Nakayama might have denied such words, but now he accepts them sincerely. When she thanks him with a happy smile, he quietly thinks to himself that it could never be bothersome. Normally distant toward others, Shimotsuki shows a gentle and innocent side only in front of him, and that alone makes him feel content. Their steady efforts continue until exam day finally arrives. When the day of the test comes, they wish each other luck before it begins. After the exam ends, the teacher starts distributing the papers, calling each student by name. When Shimotsuki's name is called, she steps forward to collect her paper. Seeing her result, she looks surprised and overjoyed. She has scored 72 marks. Proud of her achievement, she shows her paper to Nakayama, who lightly taps her head in acknowledgement and congratulates her for doing well. After class ends, Hanakishi approaches Nakayama, slightly out of breath, and tells him that the results have arrived. A moment later, Shio comes over, holding her test paper in hand. She shows it to Nakayama, who looks at it and is surprised to see her score 72 marks, something he did not expect. He had assumed her results wouldn't turn out well, but this is far better than he imagined. Shio seems proud of herself, clearly pleased with her effort. She looks confident, reminding him that she's capable when she puts her mind to it. Nakayama admits his mistake, offering a light apology as he acknowledges that she truly did well. He adds that she can achieve great things if she tries, calling her impressive. Hearing his words, Shio smiles softly, her eyes brightening with satisfaction. She admits that his encouragement helped her and that she did her best because of it. She mentions wanting to tell her mother right away and decides to make a quick call to share the good news. Before leaving, she suggests celebrating later after school, mentioning her favorite cake shop near the station. Nakayama stands there for a moment, thinking about what she said, slightly unsure how to respond. After she leaves, Hanakishi turns to him, curious about what just happened. He asks when Nakayama became so familiar with Shimotsuki, noting that he's never seen her smile like that before. Around them, a few classmates begin whispering, having witnessed the exchange. Some quietly speculate about the nature of their relationship. Nakayama realizes his classmates must have seen everything and hopes the misunderstanding doesn't spread too far. Even so, the idea lingers, the possibility that others might think they're closer than they actually are. As the classroom conversation fades, Ryuzaki appears and approaches Nakagawa, saying he has something to discuss. Nakagawa follows him out, and they walk down the corridor until they reach the music preparation room. Ryuzaki opens the door, steps inside, and announces his arrival. Nakagawa, trying to stay calm, tells himself to keep composed. He thinks of himself as someone unimportant, just a minor figure in the background. He reminds himself to focus and act naturally. With a faint smile, he greets Ryuzaki and asks what the matter is, noticing that his classmate's expression seems tense. Ryuzaki looks serious, as if something is troubling him. He begins to speak, saying something might have happened without his knowledge. His words carry a hint of frustration and uncertainty. He then questions Nakagawa directly, wanting to know what exactly he did to Shio. Nakagawa, confused, replies that he's done nothing unusual. He explains that he only talked to her about the test results and that she was pleased because her score turned out well. But Ryuzaki doesn't accept the explanation easily. His tone sharpens as he accuses Nakagawa of pretending not to understand. He says Shio doesn't smile easily, that she only shows such an expression to those she deeply trusts. He admits that, even as her childhood friend, he has rarely seen her smile genuinely, recalling it only happened once when they were younger. Yet she smiled at Nakagawa now, something he cannot comprehend. He insists it feels unnatural, that such a reaction must mean something more. Ryuzaki's thoughts turn inward as he realizes how different their situations are. He reflects that Nakagawa seems to be moving forward, while he himself has stayed still, too content with the comfort of being a childhood friend. He sees himself as a supporting figure, someone who can only watch from the sidelines while the main character takes the lead. Nakagawa, noticing his serious expression, tries to ease the tension. He reminds Ryuzaki that they shouldn't let things become strained between them. He suggests they get along and not let the situation turn into a conflict. Ryuzaki rises from his chair and walks to the window, standing there in silence before finally speaking. He says he's no longer content with being just Shivo's childhood friend and admits he has feelings for her. His thoughts turn restless as he wonders if things could have turned out differently. Determined, he declares that he will begin to pursue Shio seriously and challenges Nakagawa to face him as a rival, making it clear he's not joking. Hearing this, Nakagawa becomes unsure of what to do next. His thoughts grow heavy as he wonders how he can protect Shio from what's coming. Before he can think further, another student enters the room, calling his name and reminding him that it's his turn for class duty. Startled, Nakagawa quickly apologizes and says he'll go at once. Ryuzaki looks at him closely, realizing something strange. He remarks that Nakagawa isn't the one standing there, but Nakayama instead. Confusion spreads as Nakayama stands still, surprised that Ryuzaki has been calling him by the wrong name all this time. Nakayama corrects him, clearly stating his name. Ryuzaki processes the realization and quietly acknowledges it. He notes that a mistaken identity can be rewritten, just like a name in a story that can change in an instant. After a brief pause, he says that now that he knows the truth, it should be remembered properly. He then makes an unexpected offer. They should become friends from now on, though not just as friends, but as rivals. As Nakayama steps off the bus, his thoughts drift into confusion. He can't stop questioning his own actions, wondering why he said what he did. His mind replays the conversation he had with Ryuzaki before the school trip. Back then, Ryuzaki had mentioned that he planned to confess his feelings to Shio during the upcoming trip. Nakayama had tried to dissuade him, saying it might be too early and that he should take more time. But Ryuzaki had disagreed, insisting that he and Shio had known each other since elementary school and were already close. Their exchange gradually became tense. Nakayama had reasoned that building a deeper connection was important before expressing such feelings, but Ryuzaki took his words as a challenge. He reminded Nakayama that they were rivals and demanded a fair contest, refusing to rely on anything that might seem dishonest. As Ryuzaki turned to leave, Nakayama stopped him, suggesting that things didn't need to be rushed. Yet Ryuzaki made his decision clear. During the trip, Shio would be the one to decide between them. Now, returning to the present, Nakayama regrets everything. His chest feels heavy with frustration and guilt. He realizes his words only made things worse, as though he poured fuel onto a burning fire. Normally cautious and reserved, his judgment had failed him in that moment. While his thoughts were clouded, Ryuzaki's resolve had been sharp and certain. It felt like everything around him had conspired to push the situation forward, like a story moving too fast for its supporting characters to catch up. He blames himself completely. The mistake was his, and now he can't help but wonder how he'll ever face Shio again. Still tangled in regret, Nakayama walks toward home. Along the way, he unexpectedly comes across Shimotsuki. He looks at her in surprise, recognizing her right away. She seems slightly out of breath, and explains that she's a little late. Nakayama replies vaguely, mentioning that he had a few things to take care of. Shimotsuki watches him carefully, sensing something off in his tone and expression. With a sigh of mild irritation, she gestures toward a nearby bench and firmly tells him to sit down. When he hesitates, she lightly taps his head, her tone a mix of frustration and concern. She tells him he can't hide anything from her and asks if he's feeling down again. Her voice softens as she assures him he doesn't need to worry now. Smiling, she reminds him that she's there for him and that he has someone strong on his side. Sitting beside him, she gently takes his hand and urges him to talk about what's troubling him. She tells him he doesn't need to carry everything alone because he's important to her. Nakayama looks at her in silence, his thoughts clouded by a mix of confusion and warmth. He can't understand how she always manages to grasp his emotions without him saying anything. Her kindness always reaches him at the right time, and he finds himself wondering why she's always so considerate toward him. Still holding his hand, Shimotsuki quietly says that she'll share half his burden. Her words bring him a strange sense of comfort. After a moment of hesitation, Nakayama finally begins to explain what happened earlier. He tells her that after she left, he had a conversation with Ryuzaki, who revealed his intention to confess his feelings to Shigo during the school trip. Listening closely, Shimotsuki's expression changes slightly as she processes his words. She asks for clarification, and Nakayama nods, unsure of what else to say as his thoughts drift back to that moment. Later that day, Shigo looks at Nakayama with quiet surprise as she brings up Ryuzaki's intention to confess. She explains that she had sensed his feelings even before hearing about them, realizing something like this was bound to happen eventually. She says she isn't as unaware as others might think and admits that she had already expected this day to come. Nakayama prepares to leave, but she stops him, telling him she isn't someone who speaks carelessly without thinking about the consequences. Her words make him pause. Shigo reflects silently, thinking that she had already given her answer in her own way, though perhaps she hadn't wanted to acknowledge it before. She realizes that Ryuzaki never noticed, and a hint of frustration rises in her as she decides it's time to face things properly. Nakayama feels a deep sense of regret, admitting to himself that he often misjudges people's strength. He feels ashamed, remembering it had happened before with Azusa, and now again with Shimotsuki. He apologizes, thinking he isn't capable enough. He recalls worrying that Shimotsuki would be hurt if she got involved with Ryuzaki, and although he tried to prevent it, he ultimately failed, leaving himself discouraged. For the sake of a friend and someone who once supported him, he had wanted to help sincerely, feeling a genuine desire to do whatever he could for someone important. When he asks if there's anything he can do, Shigo responds that simply staying beside her would be enough. She suggests they enjoy the upcoming school trip together, and he agrees. A moment later, Shigo brightens up as she proudly mentions her exam results, saying she scored 72 marks and that there had been a celebration he missed. She jokingly declares that she won't forgive him for not being there and playfully announces a lighthearted punishment, chasing after him with enthusiasm. Nakayama quickly apologizes as she runs after him, her mood full of energy and laughter. And so, the story begins to take a new turn. From this point onward, it moves toward its climax, a romantic comedy centered around Ryuzaki Ryuma, seen through the eyes of someone who stands outside the main stage. Nakayama wonders quietly if there's still a place left for him within this unfolding story.